So my stakeholder was student veterans, and they have a hard time coming back to school sometimes. But they do have a program that's offered called the UK Student Veterans Association, which offers them free. Their application fee is waived. They get therapy and all this stuff for going. One of the students said, "I go to class the same as everyone else, but I'm different." They don't really feel like they're connected because most of the group is older. In Kentucky, we do have a large under 25 demographic that are student veterans, which is partly in turn because of our VA system. We have a really good VA program for student veterans. We were ranked 7th on Best for Vets in the Military Times magazine in 2011. About 355,000 veterans have taken advantage of the benefits. A lot of student veterans can get PTSD while they're overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq, but they also can be affected by a lot of different diseases. And in Florida, they have a study going on where they take high stress situations and put them in a relaxing environment, trying to get the PTSD to go down. Student veterans also have issues when they go back to class. They either don't talk at all, or they overly talk, trying to hide the fact that they feel different from everyone else. So they usually don't talk to teachers, and which can cause them to fail classes because they don't feel like they need help. They don't feel that they should show weakness in front of other students or in front of teachers because of the jobs that they were in previously.
So at ROTC, the main overall aspect of it, the two branches I'll talk about is Army and Air Force. So the main purpose is to make our officers in the Army. Upon graduation, the students go straight into the Army as an officer. So the program trains them to be an officer, trains them in leadership and career training and military skills, all to help them. The specific requirements for UK Army ROTC would be like 60 hours of coursework, comprehensive exams, philosophy 520, and a foreign language. The foreign language is usually like German or French. That's the most common ones that they take. Some of the classes that they take would be Intro to Army and Intro to Leadership. Also, the Army ROTC students can literally major in almost anything. For Air Force, the main purpose is to make leaders and better citizens. What's really cool is that the program is led by active duty officers. The courses are designed to teach like leadership, communication skills, and obviously air power history. It's the Air Force. And again, upon graduation, the students go straight into the Air Force as an officer, which also you get more pay when you go in as an officer. Some of the UK requirements are 2 classes every week, as well as physical training. The attendance rate has to be 80% in order for you to pass, and you have to take 4 classes for the Air Force ROTC every year. Some of those one of those classes would be like evolution of the U.S. Air Force, which would be like the history of it. And again, Air Force ROTC can major in anything.
I have the financial side of ROTC, and as it says that in the past school year, 50,000 students were enrolled in the college, and 17,500 only got scholarships. They're really selective because they only want the best to represent the ROTC, and when they apply, you have to keep a good grade point average, like a 3.0. You have to fill out also your extra activities that you do, and they really support doing National Honor Society, and you have to pass a fitness test too. In this, it says we could help you overcome the financial burden associated with college. That way you can focus on your high school experience to get into the best school you can. Although a lot of people want to join the ROTC to represent their country. A lot of people also use this as a way to pay for college instead of stressing about that. So this way kids could worry about their grades in high school rather than how they're going to pay and get into the best college that they could. Also, the ROTC High School Scholarship Program provides 3- and 4-year scholarships in 3 different types to high school seniors. The application process is the same for each type. So for this, there's 3 types. There's a Type 1, Type 2, and Type 7. For Type 1, you get full scholarship plus $900, and you also get extra money to spend each month, depending if you're a freshman or senior. Type 2 is you get $18,000 plus $900 for books, and then you also get that extra money. And then Type 7 is what Type 7 is where you only get $18,000. And then this one, her ROTC scholarship, which had paid for 2 years of non-residential tuition, was revoked, leaving void about $31,000 in debt. This is an example of when she came out as a lesbian and she had to pay back her scholarship. There's also ways, like if you're a sophomore and decide to drop out, you don't have to pay it back, but if you're a junior and senior, you have to pay back all the tuition that they gave you. For example, like someone had asthma and found out her senior year and was in debt because she had to pay back all of her money.
Okay, so I'm doing the social aspect of ROTC, and this is a flag raising ceremony for 9/11 last year from the Kentucky Colonel, and it's basically just highlighting the traditional element, like they're taught that they're part of something bigger than themselves, that what they are engaged in has been handed down to them from generations, and so they just kind of taught to look through the filter of like commitment, duty, service to their country, in everything they do, and I think that would distinguish them from their students. And so here's camaraderie here. When you become a part of Army ROTC, you're not just working toward a diploma, but an even brighter future as a leader alongside other motivated cadets. Beyond that, you can take part in events and activities with fellow cadets that will make your college experience even better. So basically, like they have PT training every morning. They have to wear their uniforms, and so that's kind of distinguishing them from the rest of the student body and kind of separating them from civilian students, I guess you might say. And then this is dealing with gender here. Inclusion of women in the U.S. military is generally understood as radically transforming traditional gender relations. ROTC women must privilege traditionally feminine aspects of themselves in order to maintain a coherent sense of self. These women ultimately reproduce traditional femininity and male privilege. So women in ROTC aren't like tough and manly, I guess you could say. In order to kind of maintain their sense of self and uniqueness, they have to just naturally retain their femininity, I guess. And so finally we have Don't Ask, Don't Tell. The female ROTC cadet, who was a lesbian by the way, reconsidered joining ROTC in the Air Force because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but she said her childhood dream of joining the Air Force won out in the end. And the associate director at the University of Georgia LGBT Resource Affairs Center basically said that this person represents the broad majority of homosexuals in the ROTC, and that they weren't deterred before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. So they're still in it.
So I'll be talking about what happens when ROTC students graduate. So in the fall of their senior year, they get to pick a branch and position in the Army they would prefer. And the way the Army picks them is based on GPA and their scores for their training. So a person with high scores would get to pick would most likely get the branch and position they want in their career path. The person with lower scores would obviously get maybe not theirs. So when our OTC student graduates, they get to skip basic training and go straight to becoming an officer. On the first day of being in charge, they're in charge of 30 to 40 soldiers, and they take them to through training and get ready to be deployed. So yeah, they are in charge of a large number of right off the bat. Okay, graduates are required to serve a specific amount of time when they graduate. That's how they get their school paid for. They have to promise. So they have two choices. They can have 4 years of active duty followed by 4 years of inactive reserve. And inactive reserve is when you're basically a civilian living like normal people until you are deployed. Or they can have 8 years of active reserve. So it really gives them the option of choosing. Okay, so an ROTC graduate makes $45,000 a year plus health benefits. They also receive legal support and tuition assistance for further education if they want to go back and get further degrees or anything. And this really makes it nice for they can form a career out of being in the Army and being a ROTC graduate. So,
That's it. All right, nice job, guys. Okay, so do we have any questions for the ROTC folks? Any questions, anybody? So I guess I have a question. One was that I guess Faith knew a little bit about the ROTC, but the other rest of the group, what do you all know about the ROTC?
Nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what have you learned so far, besides just, I guess, what you research in general? Why would it be an incentive for certain people to join ROTC as opposed to just joining straight up as like entering as a private or something?
You get officer training,
Mm-hmm.
higher pay.
Higher pay? All right, what else?
And also I read that a lot of people join it so that they have like a job coming out of college. Like they really like knowing that they'll have a job.
Right, security?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then now if we can relate it back, what about that Sergeant Pansky video? How does that relate to some of the stuff you guys found?
They'll have college experience coming out of the military.
Mm-hmm. What about the for-profit schools, though? Remember how they were preying on the veterans? Ross, what do you think, sir?
well, they don't. ROTC graduate wouldn't really have to worry about going back to a for-profit school because they've already got their college degree, so they can go straight into the job force after serving.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then I'll turn it back to Faith. Faith, what's the difference between an officer and someone who's not an officer in the military?
Enlisted. Officers, they get higher pay, and they also have different uniforms. So instead of like my mom's stripes, if you remember from last semester, she has stripes on her shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Officers have bars on their shoulders or stars, or depending on their rank. So the higher you get, the more bars you have, or you get like a star, depending on everything. Officers get different treatment. They're seen as higher. They're more educated because they did go to college. They have different. They don't have different ranks, but they are called different things. And depending on your branch, you get treated with much more respect than someone who's enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
And their ranks sort of go like this. Like even if my mom was a rank that's down here, there could be an officer that's actually lower than her in years that could still be above her, and she has to respect them even if she's been in longer. It's a very different type of enlistment, and while a lot of people do go through college and become officers, a lot of people who want to serve their country usually enlist because they can't stand sitting and waiting for 4 years to serve their country.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so the waiting for 4 years. Pretty big. Any other questions for this group about ROTC? Anything surprising about the folks who had to pay back their money, who are lesbians? What do you think? Olivia, what's your take on that? Should they have to pay it back?
I don't think they should I think if there was like a reason, if they did something bad in school or if they went against like a rule, they should pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
But not of like being in themselves, they shouldn't have to pay it back.
So then the homosexuality is not an issue.
Yes.
All right. Selena, what do you think, my friend?
I agree. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just being yourself and having to pay back all their money, that's kind of unfair.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we got the don't ask, don't tell policy.
Right.
So I guess I see both sides of it.
Okay. All right. All right. So good job, guys. I'm going to stop you there. Now if you're all film stars.